My advanced software engineering part 2 assignment. Here's a demo form. This is my email address, my school email address, this is my user ID, and there's my name. Okay, so I'm going to use this form to go through my program application. So I'm going to paste screenshots of my commit page before finally submitting. So it says at least 5 commits for part 2. Yes, I have 5 commits for part 2. Currently have 27 commits, and I have more than 10 commits for part 2. So each commit describes parser class created, advanced software engineering part 2, command class updated, graphical program updated, flashing button fixed, while loop. So each of the commits describes what I was trying to do. So at this point, the end if command was done and the flag was set to F for end if. This commit I declared a variable, so I could click on this link to browse through my repository to see the changes or the updates in the code. Okay, so it says at least 5 commits for part 1. Yeah, I got more than 5 commits for part 1, and early commits first of sorry, is this 1st of November or before 1st? I think my first commit was 9th of November. That's for part 1. 9th of November. So variables, yeah. So command says she runs for variables. Now this is my program interface. This is my program window, and this is my output window. I did the flashing color on my button, so maybe I could get extra marks for this, and also I did an export bitmap. Maybe I could also get extra mark for this. I'm going to run through the codes now. Now on the variables, it says let's run this code. Now the way I've declared my variable, this is num is the variable name is equals to variable value, which is whenever you call num is going to replace it to 50. So cycle this is computer be saying this as cycle 50, so draw cycle 50. Then num is equals to num plus 50, which is the value of num add to 50, so num becomes 100 and cycle 100. Now the way I've done my increment is to do it together, so it's like num plus 50. So it's going to draw cycle 50 and cycle 100 on the screen. So this is cycle 50, this is cycle 100. So my variable it's working A is equals to 100, B is equals to 100, rectangle A comma B. So this is on the screen. So I could clear, then now D is equals to 50, E is equals to 50, move to D comma E. So it's going to move it to 50-50, then cycle. Then I declare variable Z is equals to 100 and cycle Z. So move it to 50-50, then draw a cycle of Z. So my variables are all working. Variables can be assigned, yes, this is working. You can read cycle, yes, this is working. It can increment, yes. What I just did was that I removed the space in between, so it's working. And now show code to explain the variable code. Okay, let me go to my program code to explain my close this and implement my program, my variable code. So what I've done is, let me open my parser window. Every line is properly documented. So what I've done is I've said this is the command. So if when you split the screen, so for example it's like this, so A, I'm going to delete this, A it's equals to 10. So I'm saying if if the command sees this equals to, which is the first function, this is 0, this 1, this is 0, this 1, this 2. So when you see this 1 is equals to, and the length of the function is greater than 1, so what it's going to do is, what to do is that when the execution is set, when the if execution flag is false or the while execution flag is false, just keep it, because you could declare a variable inside a while loop or an if statement, and if the expression is false, so just skip it. Just run through the loop and skip this line. Just skip the line of code and continue. Now what it does is try and see if, remember we said a is equals to 2, sorry, like a test. Okay, let me just do a comment. A is equals to 2. A variable can also declare as a is equals to a plus 2. So I'm saying if this is 1 0 1 2, so I'm checking if this 2 parameter, it's not an integer. So if you check the integer and it turns false, then it means that they're going to split using the plus button. So they're trying to do a mathematical expression. Then get the first variable, which is a, check, return back the index from the variable name, because we had, this is line 902 at the beginning of it. Just a minute, I'm going to go back to that code. I created a list, array list, that holds the variable names and the variable values. So let me go back to 902. So to go through the variable name list array using this parameter and fetch me the index of it. So if it returns anything greater than minus 0, because you know the first element of an array is going to be 0. So if it returns anything greater than minus 0, you know that it has the alphabet, or the variable is found in the variable list. But if it does not return, it's going to throw an exception that the variable is not found. So it's going to throw an exception that the variable is not found. I'm also going to test the expression. So you're going to look at it. Then I'm going to say, okay, fine. Then check for, return back, since it's found, go to the variable value using the index and give me the value from the variable value using the index returned. Then go through this expression, prepare the expression, call it through the compute table, return the value, change it back to a string, and update the variable value. That is for this when it's like this. But when it's straightforward, it's just straightforward. A is equals to 2, so make sure it's an integer. Then calls the check variable command to see, this is the check variable command, so to see if the variable contains, so like for example a is equals to 10, you cannot declare a again twice, you can only increment a. So you're going to check, using this function, you're going to check if it contains, if this command which was passed is contained in the list of variable arrays. If it returns 0, it means it's good. Then if it returns once, it means it's already there. So that's what I mean by this code. So it's going to check. So if found is equals to 1, then we just add it into the, add the array name, that's the variable name, into the variable name list, and the variable value, because the variable value and just increments. So that was the command I used for. So if it contains, return 0, but if not, return 1. So if it's 1, it means it's fine, but if it's 0, it means it's an issue. So if it's 0, so this is it. If found, because I assigned this function the return value into this variable, and I check if it's 1, then it's fine, so it does not exist. But if it's 0, it means it exists, and you cannot declare a variable twice, you can only increment a variable. So that's the way I did my variable function, and it's working. Throw exceptions, the exceptions are all working, and it's checking for exceptions. Okay, so for the next part is the, we're done with the variable. The next part is the while loop. Yeah, so I've done the while loop, so let's just copy to tests to see. So let me quickly run my code for the while loop. Okay, so the way I did it is, it's going to be radius. So this radius equals to 50, while radius is less than 250. Circle radius is going to replace the value of radius with radius. Then the increments, the way I've done the increments is to put it together. So that's it. So this is my command. If I run it, that's it here on the screen. So it says radius is equals to 50, while radius is less than 250. We just cycle, to draw a cycle phase, it's going to loop through. So this while loop takes it back, it loops through, increments it, so it needs to be 50, it loops through 60, 70, 80, 90, 100 until it gets to, when it gets to 250, say 250 is not less than 250, then it skips out from the loop, because at this time the expression becomes false. So let me also run the second code of this. Okay, no, I did this, I used this, so I didn't do this loop for, I use this expression. So you can loop at least one command, yes, that is fine. So you can loop a block of code, yes, it's fine. You can process variables, yes, is what we've done. Processes variables, this is a variable. Then let me explain the code. Okay, let me explain the loop code. Let me stop it to explain the loop code. So what I've done for the loop, it's why the command is loop. So it checks for the parameter. The parameter has to be 4 because the sample is, for example, it's like everything is well documented. Is why a is a variable is less than, this can be less than, greater than, not equals to, all the conditional operators than the integer value. So if it's not complete like this, you should throw an exception. Then this is 0, array 0, 1, 2, 3. So if the third one is not an integer, so this always be a number from the way it's programmed. So if it's not a number, I should throw an exception x. Now get the variable name, check in the list of our variable name lists, array lists, get the index number for the a, go use it to retrieve the value, using that index number return to retrieve the value in the variable value list. Now prepare the expression. That's what we've done. So prepare the expression, pass it through the compute table, through the data compute table. Then if the expression returns false, then make the white flag becomes false, and you just continue looping. But if it returns true, now save the line counter, the current line number for the loop, save it into the program counter, then loop. Now when it gets to the end loop, what the end loop does is just, so when the end loop is, if it's false, then return the flag back to true. But if when it gets to the stuff and it sees that it is true, that the loop is true, it returns you back to the program counter to test again. So it's like a loop. So it gets to the end of that's the while loop, which is the end. It throws you back to the beginning of the loop to test the boolean expression to see if it's true. So it gets there and does the increment, gets to the end of the while loop, throws you back again, does the increment, and that's the way it's gonna go. Continue until it becomes false. Then when it becomes false, it sets it back to true. So I think at the beginning of it, this is where I set my, so this is my bool, this is my if flag, and this is my y flag. So I think that's working fine. So that's working fine. Then if statement, okay. So let me just show the if statement. Let me copy this if statement. Okay, that's fine. Let me run it. Check for if statement. So this value is equals to 200. This is a variable declaration. If value is less than 100, fine. Then rectangle. This, then triangle. The way I've done my triangle, I think it's triangle. Let's spell a triangle. So let me make it triangle. I think I had 4 parameters for the triangle, not 2 parameters. 160 and 180. And if, so what it's saying is a variable is equals to 200. Now if variable is less than 200, it's less than 100, of which 200 is not less than 100, so it's not going to run anything here. So let's check it. So you see it didn't run anything on my code. So let me also bring the other statements into it. Sorry, let me just run it again. Sorry. So let me put the statements here. So and if value is equals to 200. So if value is equals to 200, if value is greater than or equals to 100, which is true, I'm going to draw cycle 50 on the screen. So equals to 100, cycle 50, and it is end if is together. Yeah, end if. So that's cycle 50. So if I take this whole code, let me just go take this whole code. Oh, sorry. This whole code, copy it, paste it here. Try and make sure everything is fine here. But it tallies with my syntax and everything. So it's a 50, 100, 160, 180. Oh, sorry, this is X, Y. So this should be triangle. According to my code, and if together, then if value is less than or equals to 100, then end if. When you open an if statement, it's just appropriate to close the if statement. So this value is equals to 200 if value is less than 100, which 200 is less than 100, so it will not run the rectangle. 50 is not run the triangle, it will skip it and close the if. Then it checks again if greater than 100, so it's going to drop 50, cycle 50 to our screen. So this is cycle 50 to our screen. Okay, so yes, you can test the expression. Say if the HTML works in the bit of code, finishes with an end if. Yes, it's working. Now explain the if statement. If statement is very simple. The way I explain this is my flag, this is my if flag, and it's set to true. So let me go to my, when the command is if, this is why this if. Now when the command is if, this is a sample of the if. So if is, this can be any conditional statement, greater than, less than, equals to, not equals to, greater than, equals to, or less than or equals to. So I've said, when you check, now you convert the 3 must be an integer. So this is 0, 1, 2, 3. The 3 is an integer. If it's not an integer, then try an exception. So this is error handling. Then pick this one, pick it, is a variable. Go to our variable name list. Yeah, so our array list called variable name. Check for the index, return back the index number. Use the index number to get the value from the variable value. Then prepare the expression, pass it through the data computable. If the expression is false, if you return false, then turn the if execute flag to false and just continue. But if it's true, it leaves it at true. It's going to run each of those codes. Remember, for every expression, when it's false, so it turns to false. And let me just give you an example of a cycle command. So we have done a cycle command or a triangle command. This is that if the execution flag is false or the Y flag is false, just keep it. So as soon as it sees that it's false, it just keep those lines of code until it gets to the end if of the statement. We return it back to true. So as we have done that, so that's fine. So error checking, yes, I could check for error. So let me just check for error. You say it's up to you to not to report error friendly ways, like a program syntax. Separately check for any programs options command. Yes, report specific errors. Yes, report no specific errors. Yes, this fine, this fine, this fine. Then report multiple errors in that number. Yes, I'm gonna do that now. Then error in your code should be testing it and should show example in the, yes. Okay, so let me run that now. Let me refresh. Okay, let me run my code to check for errors. So I could say cycle A. So it gives you variable declared does not exist. So and it gives you the line number. So this is an error checking. It tells you you're trying to draw a cycle A, but there's a variable you're calling does not exist, and the variable is unknown. So I could also say instead of cycle I could put cyc 50 try rec 40 underscore 40. So it tells you invalid syntax on line 1. There's no E, it's supposed to be a cycle, not psych. Then on line 2 we also have an invalid syntax. It's supposed to be a rec and not rec. Okay, so let's check for under error rec 40 comma B. So I'm passing the wrong parameter and it tells you it's okay, yes, this variable declared does not exist. On second parameter unknown on line 1. So my syntax error are all working fine. They're working fine. Okay, so that method. No, I did not do method. The flashing color, I did not do the flashing color. The only way I did the flashing color was on the button. So what I did was, I on my form 1, just open the form 1, I created a thread. Yeah, so this was a thread, and on the thread I called the the flash color function. I started the function, and this is the function. So I just did this for extra mark, just extra mark. So this is the function. So after every 1 second, it's going to change the color from color red to color green, back to color red, back to color green. So that's what we're saying here. So color red, color green, color red, color green, using the thread. Okay, so let me go back to the form. The design pattern, no, I didn't do. I just used for my design. I just for my design I just used, I called from the form from the form from the parser form from the form I called the parser class. I passed the test into this method, the parser method. Then I just process it, check for errors, and call the appropriate canvas class. That's why I just did it. Call the appropriate canvas class. So that's why I did it. The original design. Yeah, so I have I have a class, but all my all my object classes for drawing are in the canvas class. So in this canvas class, I have a class to draw lines. I have the class to draw the move tool, the draw rectangle, the draw cycle, the draw triangle. So they're all in this class. So the parser class just calls it appropriately. So my canvas does draw cycle, pass the parameters, and on top I instantiated the class on my canvas. So my canvas, then my canvas is equals to canvas, which is this canvas class. So this is like a setter, a constructor in PHP. It'll be a constructor. It's going to run by default. Okay. So then code documentation. Yes, I did XML documentation for my classics. I did XML documentation for my classes. So all my classes had XML documentation. So these are all my documentation. I'm going to extract documentation. I'm also going to upload it with my codes. So they all have documentation, and the parameters are also documented. For my parser class, every line of code, I documented every line of code using a comment to explain what I was trying to do. So this line, every line of code was appropriately documented to explain what I was trying to do. But for the functions, I used XML documentation, but for each line I used the normal / comment documentation. So like this function, I use an XML, so I'm going to extract it also, XML documentation, and send across. So all tags are documented, parameters, outputs. Yes, code documentation generated and presented. Yes, I'm going to document it and generate it and also submit it. And error handling, yes, error handling. Use of exceptional error handling. Yes, I used the try catch method to run my code, so it brings out the exception. So throw new exception, and all my errors are entangled within the try catch method. So this is the try method. So when it tries and it fails, it's going to catch the errors. So when it tries and it fails, it's going to catch the exceptions, and it's going to message and it's going to show it in a very friendly output message box. Shows is the error line, as the error line number, and dot message, and going to increment it to the next line. So use of user generated exception to handle. Yes. Okay, I did not use the returns. Then show your code. Yeah, so I've done my code. What I did was just, so I used the try catch method, and every syntax was checked for an exception. She's going to try an exception. Every drain was checked for an exception. if I call the canvas class to do the drawing. So all those exceptions has to be passed before I could call the canvas class to do the drawing. Then yeah, so additional functionality. Yeah, in additional functionality, I added two additional functionality. This was the flashing color on the button using the thread, and also I could export. So let's say example, I set color red, I set the color to red, and a is equals to 50 cycle a. So I draw it on the screen. Gonna give me, yes, a red color. Then I could go file, export this bitmap, brings me a file on my desktop. Like I said, a, just make it AXC export bitmap, so save. So let me go back to my desktop, and this is it here, my desktop. So this is my exported bitmap. So I could export from my program code and save it as a bitmap. So I could draw anything here on this. So I could draw and I could export. So I could draw and I could export. So this is one of my additional features I'm going to put here, and my flashing color. So are there any demonstration elements of part 1? So if so, please copy the form. Okay, that's fine. Then I think